Vorik stood at the command window of his warship and looked down at the small blue planet below. It was called Proxima 4. The humans had built cities there. They had farms and schools and families. Soon, they would have nothing. He had done this many times before. 47 times, to be exact. 47 worlds had fallen to his fleet. 47 species had learned that the Kelthari Empire did not lose wars. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply took what they wanted. The Kelthari were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their bodies were covered in natural armor that could stop most weapons. Their eyes could see in the dark. Their blood was cold, and so were their hearts. They had evolved on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. Now, they were the strongest in the galaxy. Vorik was the best of them all. He had risen through the ranks by never failing. His soldiers feared him. His enemies feared him more. The Emperor himself had given Vorik the honor of conquering humanity. Thought it was supposed to be easy. The humans were young. They had only been traveling between stars for 200 years. The Kelthari had been doing it for 10,000. The humans had small ships and simple weapons. They were soft creatures made of weak flesh. They needed air and water and warmth. They got sick. They grew old. They died so easily. Vorik pressed a button on his console. "Begin the landing," he said. 1,000 dropships fell from the sky like metal rain. Each one carried 50 Kelthari warriors. That was 50,000 soldiers ready to crush everything in their path. It was more than enough. It was probably too many. But Vorik believed in being thorough. The first human city fell in 3 hours. The defenders fought bravely but uselessly. Their bullets bounced off Kelthari armor. Their explosives killed a few soldiers, but not enough. The Kelthari marched through the streets and burned everything they touched. Vorik watched the reports come in from his ship. City after city sent the same message. Resistance was light. Casualties were acceptable. Victory was certain. He felt nothing. No excitement. No satisfaction. Just the dull routine of another conquest. He had hoped the humans would be different. He had heard stories about them. Strange stories. Stories about creatures who kept fighting even when they should surrender. Stories about soldiers who would die rather than run away. Stories about weapons so terrible the humans had forbidden themselves from using them. But so far, he saw nothing special. Just another weak species about to become dust. Then something changed. A junior officer approached his command chair. The young Kelthari looked nervous. That was unusual. Vorik's officers were trained to show no emotion. "Commander," the officer said, "the humans are retreating." Vorik turned his head. "That is expected." "No, sir. I mean all of them, everywhere, at the same time." This made Vorik pause. He pulled up the tactical display. The officer was right. Across the entire planet, the human defenders were falling back. They were leaving their cities. They were abandoning their positions. All at once. All in the same direction. This was not the behavior of a defeated army. Defeated armies ran in chaos. They scattered. They left their wounded behind. They dropped their weapons. These humans were doing none of those things. They moved in perfect order. They carried their injured. They took all their equipment. They were not running away. They were going somewhere. Vorik found this interesting. Not concerning, but interesting. "Follow them," he ordered. "Do not let them escape." His ground forces pushed forward. They chased the humans into the wilderness. The forests on Proxima 4 were thick and dark. The trees grew tall enough to hide the sky. Vorik did not like it, but he did not worry either. His soldiers had thermal vision. They could see body heat through walls. The humans could not hide, but as the hours passed, something strange happened. The humans stayed ahead. No matter how fast the Kelthari moved, the humans moved faster. They seemed to know the forest better. They seemed to disappear into the shadows. And then there was the other thing. The thing that made Varric's cold blood feel just slightly colder. The humans were smiling. His soldiers captured a few wounded ones. Before they died, they smiled. Not the desperate smile of madness. Not the fake smile of someone pretending to be brave. A real smile. A knowing smile. Like they had a secret Varric did not understand. What could a dying creature have to smile about? He contacted his lead ground commander. "Report," he demanded. "We have taken all major cities," the commander said. "Human casualties are estimated at 40,000. Ours at 300. "But sir, but what?" "They left nothing behind. The buildings are empty. The computers are wiped. The food stores are gone. Even the bodies of their dead are missing." Varric processed this information. It did not match any pattern he had seen before. Conquered species did not behave this way. They fought until they were destroyed. Or they surrendered and begged for mercy. Or they hid and waited to die. They did not clean up after themselves. That night, Varric filed his report to the Emperor. He wrote that Proxima IV would fall within 3 rotations. He wrote that the humans were weak and foolish. He wrote that their species would soon be extinct. But after he sent the message, he stood at his window again and looked down at the dark forest below. Somewhere in those trees, the humans were waiting. They were planning something. He could feel it. Varric had conquered 47 worlds. He had killed millions. He had never once felt fear. But now, looking at that dark forest, he felt something close to it. A small whisper in the back of his mind. A tiny voice asking a question he could not answer. What do they know that I do not? He pushed the feeling away. It was nothing. The humans were insects, and he would crush them like all the others. But sleep did not come easy that night. And in the morning, the first patrol went missing. The war for Proxima IV had only begun. 3 days passed. The Kelthari controlled every city on Proxima IV. Their flags flew above the ruins. Their soldiers walked the empty streets. By all measures, they had won. But Varric knew something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The missing patrols were the first sign. On the first morning, one squad of 10 soldiers walked into the forest. They never came back. Their communication devices went silent. Their life signs simply vanished. Varric sent another squad to find them. Those soldiers vanished too. On the second day, he sent 50 warriors with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. They found nothing. No bodies, no blood, no tracks, just empty forest. On the third day, he stopped sending patrols into the trees. His officers tried to explain it. Wild animals, they said. The planet had predators. Maybe the humans had left traps. Maybe there was some kind of natural danger they did not know about. Varric did not believe any of it. He had seen natural dangers before. Animals left bodies. Traps left evidence. This was something else. High in the mountains, 300 kilometers from the nearest Kelthari position, Lieutenant Yuri Han lay flat on a rock and watched the enemy through her scope. She was a small woman with short black hair and steady hands. She had been a soldier for 15 years. She had fought in 3 wars before this one. But she had never fought anything like the Kelthari. She counted the aliens in the city below. She noted their patrol routes. She marked the positions of their heavy weapons. Every detail went into her tablet, and every hour that information traveled through hidden cables to the underground base where Captain Kante waited. Yuri did not hate the Kelthari. Hate was a luxury she could not afford. She simply studied them the way a hunter studies prey. She learned their patterns. She found their weaknesses. And when the time came, She would help destroy them. That time was coming soon. In the city below, Vorik called his commanders together. They gathered in what had been a human government building. The walls were bare. The furniture was gone. Like everything else on this planet, the humans had taken it with them. "Something is hunting our soldiers," Vorik said. He did not raise his voice. He never raised his voice. "I want to know what it is." His commanders looked at each other. None of them wanted to speak first. Finally, one of them stepped forward. His name was Torak, and he was the oldest of them all. He had served Vorik for 20 years. "We captured a human," Torak said. "He was wounded and could not escape with the others. We have been questioning him." Vorik's eyes narrowed. "And he will not talk. We have used all standard methods. Pain, drugs, threats. He says nothing useful. Bring him to me." The Darge dragged the human into the room. He was a large man with broad shoulders and a scarred face. His name was Deho, and he wore the uniform of a human ground forces sergeant. His body was covered in wounds, but his eyes were clear and hard. Vorik walked around the prisoner slowly. He studied the human like a scientist studying an insect. The man was bleeding from a dozen cuts. His left arm hung at a bad angle. He should be screaming. He should be begging. But instead, he just watched Vorik with those cold, calm eyes. "You are going to die," Vorik said. "Your people are gone. Your cities are dust. There is no rescue coming. The only question is whether you die quickly or slowly." Deho laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was genuine. Like Vorik had told a funny joke. "You think this is war?" The human said. His voice was rough and tired, but steady. "You have no idea what war is." Vorik leaned closer. "I have conquered 47 worlds. I have killed millions. I think I know what war is." Deho shook his head slowly. "You know how to win." "That is not the same thing. You have never lost. You have never watched your home burn. You have never buried your children." He coughed, and blood came out of his mouth. But he kept talking. We have done all of those things. We have done them to each other for thousands of years. And we are still here." Vorik felt that cold feeling again. That whisper in his mind. He pushed it down. "You speak of the past," he said. "I am talking about the present. Right now, your species is dying." "Maybe," Deho said. "But not the way you think. You came here looking for a quick victory. You thought we would fight you in the cities. You thought we would meet your army with our army. You thought we would play by your rules." He smiled. That same knowing smile that Vorik had seen on the faces of the other dying humans. "We are not playing by your rules." Vorik grabbed the human by the throat. His forearms could crush stone. This soft creature would break like a dry branch. "Tell me what you are planning," he growled. Deho looked into Vorik's eyes without fear. "You will find out soon enough. And when you do, you will wish you had never heard of humanity." Vorik snapped his neck. The human died instantly, still smiling. That night, Vorik stood at his window again. The forest below was dark and silent. No sounds, no movement. But somewhere in that darkness, humans were watching, waiting. Planning. He activated his scanner and swept the forest. For life signs, nothing. The trees were too thick. Or the humans had found a way to hide their heat. Or they were not in the forest at all. A strange thought came to him. What if they are underground? He checked the geological surveys of the planet. The reports showed normal rock and soil. No caves, no tunnels. Nothing unusual. But the reports were from before the humans arrived. What if they had dug? Vorik sent a team with ground-penetrating scanners to search the wilderness. They found nothing. Or at least, they reported nothing. 3 of them disappeared on the way back. In the underground base, 300 kilometers down and 300 kilometers away. Captain Kang Tae received the latest report from Lieutenant Yuri Han. The Kelthari were getting nervous. They were starting to suspect. But they were not even close to the truth. The truth was that this base held 50,000 human survivors. The truth was that it connected to a network of tunnels that stretched across the entire continent. The truth was that the humans had been building this place for 10 years. Ever since they first detected the Kelthari fleet approaching this region of space. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this war for a very long time, and the truth was that the time to reveal their weapon was almost here. Kang Tae looked at the door that led to the deepest part of the base. Behind that door was Project Ember, the weapon that nobody wanted to use. The weapon that could end this war in a single night. He hoped it would not be necessary. He prayed the Kelthari would leave, but he knew they would not. And so he began to make the hardest decision of his life. Dr. Hannah Bay had not slept in 4 days. She sat in front of a large console covered in buttons and screens, and she watched the numbers change. Everything was ready. The weapon was charged. All they needed was the order. She did not want the order to come. Hannah was not a soldier. She was a scientist. She had spent her whole life trying to understand how minds worked, how thoughts formed, how memories were stored. She had never wanted to hurt anyone. But then the Kelthari came, and suddenly, all her peaceful research became the foundation for the most terrible weapon humanity had ever created. Project Ember was not a bomb. It was not a virus. It was not a poison. It was something new. Something that had never existed before. Something that attacked the one thing no other weapon could touch. It attacked the soul. The door behind her opened. Captain Kang Tae walked in. He moved slowly, like a man carrying a great weight. His face was pale and tired. He had not slept either. How long until it is ready? He asked. It has been ready for 3 days, Hannah said. The question is not whether we can use it. The question is whether we should. Kang Tae sat down beside her. He stared at the console for a long moment. The lights blinked. The machines hummed. The weapon waited. They burned the eastern settlement yesterday, he said quietly. 4,000 people, families, children. They did not try to capture them. They did not ask them to surrender. They just killed them all. Hannah closed her eyes. She had seen the reports. She had seen the images. She would never forget them. I know, she whispered. If we do not stop them, they will kill everyone. Every human on this planet. And then they will go to the next human world, and the next, until there are none of us left. I know that too. Kang Tae turned to look at her. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. But there was something else there. Something broken. Tell me again what this weapon does, he said. Tell me exactly what will happen. Hannah took a deep breath. She had explained this many times, but she understood why he needed to hear it again. The weapon releases nanomachines, she began. Tiny robots, smaller than dust. They enter the body through breathing. They travel to the brain. And then they do something that should be impossible. She paused. The next part was the hardest to explain. Every living creature stores memories in their brain. Experiences, feelings, emotions. In most species, these memories are private. They cannot be shared. But the nanomachines change that. They create a bridge between minds. A bridge to what? To us, to humanity, to every memory we have ever recorded in our database. Kang Tae's face went pale. Every memory? The worst ones. The ones we chose to include. 200 years of human suffering. Every war. Every tragedy. Every loss. every moment of pain and grief and terror. She pointed to a device in the center of the room. It looked like a simple black box, but it contained more data than any library in history. Inside that box is the collective trauma of the human race. The bombs that destroyed cities. The camps where millions died. The diseases that killed children. The earthquakes and fires and floods. Every piece of suffering we could find. Hannah's voice shook as she continued. When the nanomachines activate, all of that memory will flood into every Kalthari mind on this planet. They will feel everything. Not as history. Not as information. They will experience it as if it is happening to them. As if they are the ones suffering. Kante was silent for a long time. Then he asked the question she knew was coming. Will it kill them? Probably not. At least not directly. Their bodies will survive. But their minds? She shook her head. The Kalthari have never experienced loss. They have never felt grief. They have no defenses against these emotions. When the memories hit them, they will break. Break how? Some will go mad. Some will shut down completely. Some might survive with their sanity intact, but they will never be the same. They will carry our pain with them forever. Kang Tae stood up and walked to the window. The underground base had no real windows, but a screen showed an image of the surface. The forest. The mountains. The sky full of Kalthari ships. Is there any other way? He asked. Hannah wished she could say yes. She wished there was some other option. Some clever plan that would save everyone without causing suffering. But there was not. They are too strong, she said. Our weapons cannot hurt them. Our soldiers cannot match them. We have been fighting a guerrilla war for weeks, and all we have done is slow them down. Eventually, they will find this base. They will find all of us. And they will kill us like they killed the Eastern settlement. Kante nodded slowly. He did not turn around. Then we have no choice. He walked to the console and placed his hand on the activation panel. It scanned his fingerprints. It checked his voice. It confirmed his identity. Authorization confirmed, the computer said. Project Ember is ready to deploy. Awaiting final command. Kang Tae looked at Hana. She looked back at him. Neither of them wanted to do this. But sometimes survival required terrible things. Deploy, he said. The machine began to hum. Deep in the base, 1,000 canisters opened. The nanomachines rose into the ventilation system. They traveled through tunnels that led to the surface. They emerged from hidden vents scattered across the continent, and then the wind carried them toward the Kalthari cities. In the mountains, Lieutenant Yuri Han watched through her scope. She saw the moment the sky began to change. A faint red glow appeared on the horizon. Like sunset, but in the wrong direction. She checked her sealed suit to make sure it was working. The nanomachines would not affect humans. They were designed to target only Kalthari biology. But she still felt afraid. It is done, she whispered into her communicator. 300 kilometers underground. Kang Tae heard her voice. He closed his eyes. May God forgive us, he said. Hanabe said nothing. She just watched the screens as the red glow spread across the planet. The weapon was in the air now. There was no stopping it. Within hours, every Kalthari on Proxima IV would breathe in the nanomachines. And then they would learn what it truly meant to be human. They would learn about suffering. They would learn about loss. They would learn about the endless capacity for pain that had shaped humanity from its first day to its last. The Kalthari thought they were conquerors. They thought they were invincible. They thought they could take what they wanted without cost. They were about to discover that humanity always made its enemies pay. Varric was in his command room when the sky turned red. He looked up at the screen showing the outside view and frowned. The color was wrong. It was not sunset. It was not fire. It was something else. "What is that?" he demanded. His officers scrambled to check their instruments. None of them had an answer. The red glow was spreading across the horizon like blood in water. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Then the first soldier screamed. Varric turned to see one of his guards fall to his knees. The soldier was a veteran of 30 campaigns. He had never shown fear. He had never shown pain. But now he was clutching his head and screaming like a dying animal. More screams followed. All around the room, Kelthari warriors began to collapse. They tore at their own skin. They clawed at their eyes. They begged for mercy in languages Varric did not know. Varric felt it too. It started as a whisper, a faint echo at the edge of his mind. Then it grew louder and louder, until it was a roar that filled every corner of his brain. He saw things, terrible things, things that had never happened to him but felt as real as his own memories. He was a young girl in a burning city. Bombs fell from the sky. Her mother was dead in the street. She ran through the smoke, screaming for help that never came. He was an old man in a prison camp. He had not eaten in days. His friends were gone. His family was gone. He watched guards laugh as they hurt the other prisoners. He was a soldier in a war. His brothers fell around him. Bullets tore through flesh. He held his best friend in his arms and watched the life leave his eyes. He was a mother in a hospital. Her child was sick. The doctors could not help. She stayed by the bed for 3 days until her baby stopped breathing. The memories came faster. Thousands of them. Millions of them. Everyone was pain. Everyone was loss. Everyone was a piece of human suffering that had been carefully chosen and preserved. Varric fell to the floor. His forearms could not support him. His legs had no strength. He was drowning in an ocean of grief that was not his own. Around him, his officers were worse. Some had stopped screaming because their voices had given out. Some had gone silent and still, their eyes empty. Some were tearing at their own faces with their claws, trying to rip out the memories that now lived inside them. In the city below, 50,000 Kelthari soldiers experienced the same thing. Warriors who had never known defeat now knew what it felt like to lose everything. Conquerors who had never felt remorse now felt the weight of every life they had taken. The mighty Kelthari army broke like glass. Some soldiers killed themselves. They could not bear the pain. They had no words for what they were feeling, no experience to help them understand. They only knew that they wanted it to stop, and death was the only way. Some went mad. They attacked their own comrades. They ran into the forest screaming. They tried to dig into the ground to escape the memories, clawing at dirt until their fingers bled. Some simply stopped. They stood frozen like statues, their minds shutting down completely. Their hearts kept beating. Their lungs kept breathing. But the person inside was gone, crushed under the weight of 200 years of human tragedy. Varric fought against it. He was the strongest of them all. He had survived things that killed lesser Kelthari. He would survive this too, but he could not make it stop. The memories kept coming. A child watching her father die of disease. A man who lost his wife in an earthquake. A family separated forever by war. A village destroyed by flood. A city erased by fire. And mixed with the memories were feelings. Not just pain, but love. Terrible, heartbreaking love. The love of parents for children they would never see grow up. The love of soldiers for brothers who died in their arms. The love of survivors who had lost everything but kept going anyway. This was the worst part. The pain was terrible, but the love was worse. Because the love made the pain mean something. It transformed simple suffering into something much deeper. Something the Kelthari had no defense against. Varric had killed millions in his career. He had watched worlds burn and felt nothing. But now, for the first time, He felt what his victims had felt. He experienced their last moments. He knew their names, their hopes, their dreams. He understood that they were not just numbers. They were people. They were like the humans in these memories. They had loved and lost and suffered, and he had ended them without a second thought. The realization hit him harder than any weapon ever had. He was a monster. Hours passed. Or maybe days. Vorik could not tell. Time had lost meaning. He lay on the floor of his command room, surrounded by the bodies of his officers. Some were dead. Some were mad. Some were simply empty. He was none of these things. He was still Vorik, still aware, still thinking, but he was not the same. The memories had changed him. He could not forget them. He would never forget them. They were part of him now, woven into his brain like threads in cloth. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces. Every time he was quiet, he heard the screams. He understood now. He understood why the humans had smiled as they retreated. He understood why that soldier Deho had laughed at him before dying Dodd. This was not just a weapon. It was a message. The message was simple. You wanted to know what humans are. Now, you know. We are the species that has suffered more than any other and survived. We carry our pain with us. It makes us strong. And now we have shared it with you. Vorik tried to stand. His legs shook, but they held. He looked around the room at the ruin of his command staff. Then he looked at the screen showing the city outside. Everywhere, Kelthari soldiers were broken. Some walked in circles, talking to people who were not there. Some sat on the ground and wept. Some had simply stopped moving. The invasion was over. Not because the humans had killed them, but because the humans had shown them what killing meant. Vorik walked to the communication console. His hands were trembling. He had never trembled before. He pressed the button to send a message to the Emperor. "This is Commander Vorik," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Requesting immediate withdrawal from human space. Repeat, immediate withdrawal. We cannot win this war." He paused. The faces of the dead swam through his mind. Human faces. Alien faces. All the same in their suffering. "We should never have come here," he said. "We did not know what we were fighting. We do now. Please, for the sake of our species, call off the invasion." He ended the transmission and sat down on the floor. In the mountains, Lieutenant Yuri Han watched through her scope. She saw the Kelthari army in ruins. She saw warriors who had conquered galaxies now weeping like children. She felt no joy, only a deep, heavy sadness. "It worked," she said into her communicator. Underground, Captain Kante heard her voice. He did not celebrate. He did not smile. "I know," he said. "God help us all." The weapon had done its job. Humanity had won. But as Kante looked at the screens showing the devastated enemy, he wondered if this was really victory, or if it was just another kind of loss. The great hall of the Kelthari Empire was silent. 10,000 years of history stared down from the walls. Statues of ancient warriors, paintings of conquered worlds, trophies from 100 dead civilizations. And in the center of it all stood Vorik. He was thinner now. His gray skin had lost its shine. His forearms hung loose at his sides. He looked like an old man, though he was barely middle-aged by Kelthari standards. Before him sat the Emperor and the War Council, 20 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They had built an empire that stretched across 1,000 stars. They had never been defeated. They had never known fear. They were about to learn both. "Commander Vorik," the Emperor said. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "You were given the finest fleet in our history. You were given the honor of conquering humanity. You had 50,000 warriors under your command." He leaned forward on his throne. His eyes burned with cold fire. And yet you return with nothing. Your fleet is broken. Your soldiers are useless. You beg for retreat like a frightened child. Explain yourself. Vorik looked at the Emperor. He had served this man for 40 years. He had killed for him. He had conquered for him. He had never questioned a single order that. Now he was going to tell the truth. The humans defeated us, Vorik said simply. The council stirred. Murmurs of disbelief. A few laughed. One general stood up and pointed at Vorik. Defeated? By those soft creatures? Impossible. They have no weapons that can hurt us. They have no ships that can match ours. This is a lie. It is not a lie, Vorik said. They did not defeat us with weapons or ships. They defeated us with something we did not know existed. What could that be? The Emperor demanded. Vorik took a deep breath. The memories swirled inside him. Even now, weeks later, they were still there. They would always be there. They made us feel what they feel, he said. They put their memories inside our minds. 200 years of human suffering. Every war. Every tragedy. Every moment of pain. He looked around the room at the faces of the council. They did not understand. How could they? They had never lost anything. We have conquered 200 worlds, Vorik continued. We have killed billions. We felt nothing. No guilt. No remorse. No pain. We thought this made us strong. He shook his head slowly. It made us weak. We had no defense against what the humans gave us. Their memories broke our soldiers like twigs. Warriors who had never known fear went mad with grief. Officers who had led armies for centuries sat down and wept until they died of thirst. The general who had spoken earlier laughed again. This is nonsense. You are simply making excuses for your failure. Then go yourself, Vorik said quietly. Take another fleet. Land on another human world. And when your soldiers start screaming, when your officers begin tearing out their own eyes, remember what I told you today. The general fell silent. The Emperor studied Vorik for a long moment. You say the humans made you feel their pain. What kind of pain? Vorik closed his eyes. The memories rose up immediately. They never waited to be called. I felt a mother holding her dying child. I felt a soldier watching his friends die around him. I felt an old man in a prison camp, starving and alone. I felt thousands of people in a burning city, running from bombs they could not escape. His voice shook. He did not try to hide it. And worst of all, I felt their love. The love that made all the pain mean something. The love of people who had lost everything but kept going anyway. The love that we have never known because we have never had to fight for it. He opened his eyes and looked directly at the Emperor. The humans are not warriors in the way we understand. They are survivors. They have spent their entire existence fighting and losing and fighting again. Every tragedy in their history has made them stronger. Every loss has taught them something new. He gestured around the hall at all the trophies and paintings. We think we are strong because we have never been defeated. But that is not strength. It is just luck. The humans know what it feels like to be crushed, to be broken, to watch everything they love turn to ash. And they survived it all. He stepped forward, closer to the throne. That is why we cannot defeat them. Because there is nothing we can do to them that they have not already done to themselves. And they have learned to keep going anyway. The hall was completely silent. Even the Emperor had nothing to say. Vorik reached up and removed the medals from his chest. One by one, he dropped them on the floor. 47 campaigns. 47 victories. All meaningless now. Send another fleet if you wish, he said. Send 1,000 fleets. It will not matter. We fight to conquer. They fight because they have already lost everything and learned how to survive. We cannot break creatures who are already broken and have put themselves back together. He turned and walked toward the door. No one tried to stop him. At the entrance to the hall, he paused and looked back one final time. "Leave them alone," he said. "It is the only wise choice. Some species are not meant to be conquered. Some species should simply be avoided." Then he walked out into the cold night air. Behind him, the Emperor sat in silence for a long time. Then he quietly canceled the second invasion. On Proxima IV, the last Kelthari ships lifted off and vanished into the stars. Lieutenant Yuri Han watched them go from her position in the mountains. She felt tired. So very tired. Captain Kang Tae received the news in the underground base. The war was over. Humanity had won. He should have felt happy. He should have felt proud. He felt neither. Dr. Hannah Bay sat alone in her lab, staring at the console that controlled Project Ember. The weapon was offline now. It had done its job. It would probably never be used again. She hoped it would never be used again. The three of them gathered that evening in a small room near the surface. The sun was setting over the forest. Orange light spilled through the windows. It was beautiful. Did we win? Yuri asked. Tang Tae thought about the question for a long time. He thought about the Kelthari soldiers who had gone mad. He thought about the ones who had killed themselves rather than live with human memories. He thought about Vorik standing before the Emperor, telling them to leave humanity alone. "We survived," he finally said. "I do not know if that counts as winning." Hannah looked out the window at the forest. Somewhere out there, the bodies of Kelthari soldiers still lay where they had fallen. Some of them were still alive, their minds empty, waiting for death that would not come. "What happens now?" she asked. "We rebuild," Kang Tae said. "We bury our dead. We try to forget what we did here." "I do not think I can forget," Yuri said quietly. "Neither do I," Kang Tae admitted. "But we will try. That is what humans do. We survive terrible things, and then we keep going." He stood and walked to the window. The sun was almost gone now. Stars were appearing in the sky. Somewhere up there, the Kelthari fleet was running home. "They came here thinking they knew what war was," he said. "They thought they were invincible. They thought they could take whatever they wanted." He watched the last light fade from the sky. Now they know the truth. War is not about weapons or soldiers or tactics. War is about suffering. And no one suffers better than us. No one loses more and keeps fighting. No one breaks more completely and puts themselves back together. He turned to look at Hannah and Yuri. His face was sad but calm. "That is why the universe should leave us alone. Not because we are strong, not because we have great technology, but because we have already survived everything, and we will survive anything else that comes." The three of them sat in silence as night fell over Proxima IV. The war was over. Humanity had won. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a combat-tested alien was warning his people never to return. Some prey was too dangerous to hunt. Some enemies were too broken to defeat. Some species carried so much pain inside them that sharing it became the deadliest weapon of all. Humanity was all of these things, and now the galaxy knew it.